As we all know, Neelix is a very naughty cat with an unhealthy taste for ice cream. An unusual name for a feline was, we assume, just a regular name for a Talaxian. Voyager's guide, cook, and kitchen sink throughout almost the entirety of its 7-year journey home. Plus, as the Doctor once noted, the actual Neelix doesn't purr. Let's be honest, Neelix was probably never a fan favourite. Time hasn't tempered feelings toward him either. For Caretaker, I think the hardest part of the process was making anyone care about Neelix, Star Trek Voyager executive producer Michael Piller admitted in Captain's Log's supplemental. We had to rely a great deal on the character of Kes to make us care about him. Neelix was always more than that. Displaced from the Talaxian system after the devastating end to the war with the Hakonians, he was a man making do, surviving on his own wits in an unforgiving part of the galaxy. Neelix had lost his family in the cruelest fashion. In Voyager, he found an adoptive family like no other. In Ethan Phillips, he was also very finely acted. In the end, perhaps the biggest thing you didn't know about Neelix is that you like him more than you think. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Neelix. Number 10. None to Neelix. At first, there was no Neelix. For months during the initial development of Star Trek Voyager, there was only the Mayfly, otherwise unnamed. According to Jerry Taylor's notes from March 1993, given in Star Trek Voyager, A Vision of the Future, the Mayfly was to be the alien scout for the ship, and a female, or male, or androgynous, with a lifespan of only 7 years. In other words, this was Kes, with more than a hint of her future Talaxian lover. The Mayfly combo character persisted all the way into September of 1993. Only by the end of that month did Neelix begin to appear as his own separate entity in Michael Piller's complete first draft of the Voyager series Bible. Or, to be more precise, Neelix was Felix, alien male and gopher guide. By October 1993, Piller's first story draft for Caretaker had changed Felix to Felox. A little later, in February of 1994, another version of the series Bible switched Felox to Neelix. On the very same day, a further story draft for Caretaker gave Neelix as Neelox. The day after that, he was back to being Neelix, and the name-calling didn't end there. Number 9. Hedgehog Day. Neelix has had a lot of epithets thrown at him over the years, mostly by fans, often by Tuvok, and that one time by Q at the bar. Watch your mouth, Hedgehog was one of the more notable insults hurled by Quarren's simulation of Tom Paris in Living Witness. The Museum of Kyrian Heritage might have got most things wrong, but Hedgehog was more historically accurate than you might think. When Ethan Phillips first went up for a role of Neelix, he didn't know he was auditioning for an alien. I thought he was a human being with a boil on his neck for some reason, he noted in Star Trek Voyager A Celebration. Just before Phillips was called into the audition room, the actor sitting next to him said, "Have you heard what the character of Neelix is? He looks like a hedgehog." Phillips admitted that he didn't know what to do with this information and so just read him like a human being. As we discussed in our 10 Things You Didn't Know About the Doctor, Robert Picardo was vying for the role of Neelix too. Prior to the in-person auditions in Los Angeles, Phillips had also put himself on tape for what was still Doc Zimmerman. In the end, the choice for Neelix came down to Phillips and Picardo, both friends. As Phillips noted in Star Trek Voyager, A Vision of the Future, "Bob and I have gone up against each other for parts for 20 years. Sometimes he gets them, sometimes I get them. In this case, they got each other's." Number 8. Hair and Makeup, Hakuna Matata. A Day in the Life of Ethan Phillips reads the title of a Star Trek Voyager DVD extra. That day began very early. At 3:30 a.m, Phillips was in his trailer before heading to hair and makeup for well over 2 hours. After a full day's filming, in this case for the episode Phage, he then had to spend another hour and a half having Neelix removed. The actor took it all in his stride. "I feel fantastic," he noted to the camera, as he headed back to his trailer in the dead of night. Phillips' no worries, no complaints approach was not only a boon to his colleagues. Kate Mulgrew recalled the hysterical on-set antics in her first memoir, Born with Teeth. It was also anchored in the design of Neelix himself. When it came to devising the look for the Talaxian, legendary makeup artist Michael Westmore took direct inspiration from a film he'd recently seen, The Lion King. He had Hakuna Matata very much in mind. The two characters that people loved in The Lion King were the meerkat and the warthog. Westmore noted in the extra Delta Quadrant makeup magic, "I'm going to design an alien that brings out the characteristics of those two characters," Westmore added. and so a cross between Timon and Pumbaa it was, although Neelix's mane was actually made of goat hair. Number 7. The Lion King. Character descriptions weren't kind to Neelix in the beginning. At least one version of the series Bible, pre-Caretaker, described him as a strange one, small, scraggly, toothless, and cunning, before adding that he was part scavenger, trader, conman, procurer, and sage. The first draft of Caretaker itself, dated 8th of June 1994, was no better, in that Neelix is a short, plump, unkempt being who has adopted an air of cultivated elegance and charm that is at odds with his seedy appearance. In the episode that aired, he was less than honest with the crew of Voyager in the first place, lying by omission in order to rescue Kes, and to have a long soak in one of those newfangled baths. Neelix was hardly a career criminal, but he did get up to a few shady dealings with the odd disreputable. In Fair Trade, for example, we found out that Neelix was once a contraband smuggler. His partner, Wixiban, had even spent time in prison for the crime. The basic premise for Fair Trade began life much earlier, without the Necrid Expanse, in a script pitched by the same writers, Ronald Wilkerson and Jean-Louis Matthias, back in Season 1. In that version of the story, things were worse for Neelix. He had also spent time in jail with the unnamed Wixiban-esque character. Wixiban, or thereabouts, then arrived on Voyager to bribe Neelix under threat of revealing his nefarious past. The script was put aside in favour of Jetrel. Number 6. A Little Bird Told Me. Neelix might not have garnered many admirers over the years, to no fault of Ethan Phillips, but who needs legions when one very special one will do? That fan of all fans was none other than Robin Williams, who was always rather fond of all things Star Trek too. As Phillips recalled, it was during production of Star Trek Voyager's 3rd season, in fact most likely the 2nd, that he bumped into Williams whilst making his way to Stage 16. Williams was on the Paramount lot filming The Birdcage. "Oh my god, Mr. Neelix," Williams cried out before treating Phillips to a whole routine about what it's like to be a chef in outer space. Williams left on a hug, noting, "I love your character, sir." During a virtual GalaxyCon panel in 2021, Robert Duncan McNeill and Kate Mulgrew revealed that they had also met Williams during that time. "I played baseball with him," Mulgrew noted enthusiastically. McNeill went on to confirm Williams' love for Neelix, adding that Williams had even expressed interest in being on the show. The Mork and Mindy star very nearly appeared as Berlinghoff Rasmussen, a role written for him in Star Trek The Next Generation's A Matter of Time. Williams couldn't accept, however, because he was otherwise occupied filming Hook. Number 5. Pots, pans, and swimsuits. Neelix is the ultimate in flexibility and a jack of many, many trades, notes the Star Trek Voyager series Bible. He was certainly several things even before his time on the Intrepid class. Orbital tether scale model something or other, mining colony worker, engineer's assistant, garbage scout worker, merchant, trader, smuggler. The list goes on. On Voyager, he was guide, chief morale officer, coffee wrangler, ambassador, grand proxy, godfather, part-time presenter, one-time sleuth, and, of course, cook. Most of the crew might have balked at the mere sight of his Leola root stew, but by the end, in Captain Janeway's words, Neelix had left some pretty big pots and pans to fill. His hollow novel, Cooking with Neelix, a culinary tour of the Delta Quadrant, never did see the light of day. In the real world, Ethan Phillips, as Neelix, did get to co-author the Star Trek cookbook from 1999, which included recipes from the crews of Voyager, the Enterprise D, Deep Space Nine, a couple of Cardassians, and a Ferengi for good measure too. The Star Trek cookbook includes the top 10 reasons the crew hates Neelix's cooking. Number 9, kidney is not a breakfast food. Number 8, a little confused by the soup fork. No doubt the most surprising revelation of the piece is that Neelix spent a few years as a swimsuit model on Talax. Thankfully that's not canon, but it's going to haunt you the next time you stop by the mess hall. Number 4, sonic showers. Search for Neelix on the internet, you're just as likely to happen upon a psy-trance music producer and DJ from Hamburg as you are a chef from the Delta Quadrant. Neelix, real name Henrik Twardzik, a self-titled nerd, evidently got the pseudonym from Star Trek Voyager, rather than by some massive coincidence. It is doubtful, however, he found the same inspiration in the character's own musical inclinations. We know Neelix, the actual Neelix, liked to sing, in the same way that serial killers are also rather fond of killing. No amount of Vulcan funeral dirges or Klingon drinking songs would help, however. As 7 of 9 pointed out, the Talaxian's vocal cords were incapable of producing basic diatonic tones, lest we forget his rhythmic shortcomings. Stick to the sonic shower and stay away from Q Jr. Ethan Phillips, on the other hand, is a gifted musician. He has starred in at least one Broadway musical and plays the tenor saxophone. He's also a member of the Star Trek Rat Pack alongside the likes of Max Grodenchik, Jeffrey Combs, Vaughn Armstrong, and Casey Biggs. Number 3. Ocampa and Company. When names were decided on, 2 were put together. In fact, more than one version of the Star Trek Voyager series Bible gives Neelix and Kes as a single entry. Inseparable on the page, the pair were hardly made for each other on the screen. The, at best, bizarre age gap notwithstanding, Neelix and Kes were always a truly odd couple, as the Season 1 series Bible put it. According to the same version of the Bible, Neelix and Kes were also meant to become oblique commentators on the human condition, along the lines of Spock, Data, and Odo. In the words of executive producer Michael Piller, "We'd never seen that done with a male and female, but it just didn't seem to work. The couple broke up unofficially in Season 3's Warlord. We'll discuss that in a bit more detail in our video about Kes." Neelix and Kes weren't the only odd couple aboard Voyager. Neelix and Tuvok filled that role too, despite the latter's sometimes violent protestations. Behind the scenes, Ethan Phillips and Tim Russ had become fast friends from day one on the set. Not even Tuvix could take that away, a role, moreover, which was originally planned for Phillips. Odd indeed. Number 2. Good night, Voyager. 40,000 light years, give or take a parsec or two, was an awfully long way for Neelix to go back home, even if he wanted to, even if the Hakonians had left. Fortunately, as Voyager continued its way in the opposite direction, the crew stumbled on a group of Talaxians who had somehow also made it out that far. Get your dancing shoes on, Mr. Vulcan, Neelix is about to depart. Ethan Phillips has admitted that he was initially a little unhappy with the decision to have Neelix remain in the Delta Quadrant at the end of Homestead. He soon came around to the producer's point of view, however, noting that the more I thought about it, the more I decided they were right. Why should Neelix go back to Earth? He's not from Earth. He doesn't have anything going on down there. Fiction then collided with real life for Phillips as Neelix made his way down the corridor to the Baxial. As the actor told the Hamilton Comic Con Q&A panel in 2019, cast, crew, producers and writers had all shown up, some donning the Starfleet uniform, to say goodbye. That little walk was very emotional, Phillips concluded. Number 1. Hello, holograms? In theory, the last we saw of Neelix was in holographic form in the 2023 Very Short Treks episode Holograms All the Way Down. In practice, Neelix's very last on-screen outing was over the comm playing Codiscot with 7 of 9 in Endgame. Hologram or not, anything in the self-promoted anything but canon Very Short Treks can't strictly be said to count. In that, Neelix remains one of the few characters from Star Trek Voyager not to have made a return to the franchise in canon, not even yet in the partly Delta Quadrant-based Star Trek Prodigy. Ethan Phillips has reprised the role nonetheless, most notably in Star Trek Online's second expansion, Delta Rising. In that, Neelix has become the leader of the relocated Talaxian asteroid colony, now in search of a planet on which to settle. He is also reunited with a few old friends, including Admiral Tuvok. If we return to holograms via the Doctor, there is still a possibility for Neelix to appear photonically, or otherwise, in the upcoming Star Trek Starfleet Academy. We know holographic life will feature in new and interesting ways in the series, plus, who needs cooking skills more than a bunch of students? Bring back Neelix, end synthesized veggies. And that's everything for our list today, folks. Thank you so much for watching along, and thanks a million for showing Neelix some love. The poor man gets a bit of a kicking. We love him here on the channel. You are awesome, you are wonderful. Please make sure you're following us on the various socials. We are at TrekCulture or at TrekCultureYT on Instagram. Until I see you again, live long and prosper, be kind, be wonderful. Pick up some merch if you like, links under the description of the video. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a million.